I want to make a couple comments on the Marine Highway, and then I'll go on and talk about the school funding issue if I could. But I would like to echo the support that you see coming out of the coastal region. And here in Southeast, regardless of party, regardless of what island you're on, or if you're not even on an island, you're on the mainland. Juneau here, of course. We are united in our support of the Marine Highway. And when we go further up the coast, through Cordova, Prince William Sound, around into Kodiak, that doesn't change. Clear out into the chain itself. United, makes no difference. What town you're from, what party you're from, what education you have, what background you have, it's all irrelevant. What we're fighting for is our fundamental transportation system. And right after statehood, Southeast Conference came together for one primary goal, and that was to put in a marine transportation system. It was one of the first big bond packages the state of Alaska ever did, well before oil. And we built vessels, of which now we're in some discussion on the retirement of them. But the system is so vital and so critical to our coastal areas, as you know, commented on by the representatives here and the senators. So I urge support for the system. We do have future budgets coming before us. We have no idea what's going to be in them when we're done doing our process in each body. They may look similar and they may look dissimilar. And they may have timing issues, or we may have timing issues that aren't in parallel between the two bodies. So we may be coming together as far as May to try to put a budget, final budget together, and it may not be till mid-June till it's signed and enacted. And what we're concerned about is the empty grocery stores today. The young mothers with no diapers for their kids today, not in June or in July. So I urge support for the Marine Highway, and I commit to working with all coastal legislators as we go forward in all other areas of the state. Particular interest in the Fairbanks area, the military area, and on Anchorage have significant impacts. So we'll have those discussions coming up. But I would like to shift gears a little bit and talk about the school debt reimbursement. Again, you know, we are the policy body. We are obligated by the Constitution to educate our children. We set up the debt reimbursement plan. And it has been in place for decades. The communities that are organized and have cash economies, we encourage them to build their own schools. And we, collectively, will subsidize their debt service payments and help them pay those school bonds off. The other areas of the state, and I have some of that also, that don't have a cash economy, we say to those communities, we will build you schools. We will build you schools that are safe, they are warm, and we will educate your children. It is our fundamental responsibility. And here we go today. Fast forward. A lot of communities have got their bonds paid off. A lot of them don't. The new schools are being built. A lot of areas don't need schools. My district, unfortunately, we need kids, not buildings in the future. A lot of the areas of the state are like that. Mat-Su is not like that. We all know Mat-Su area is the highest growth in the state. It looks like that's going to continue, and we need to build schools in Mat-Su. We also can't expect communities with no cash economy to build their schools, so we pay for them. The concern I have with this reduction from full payment down to 50% is we have not taken that policy to the floor of both bodies to conclusion and set a new policy going forward. We have not done that. As far as I know, we don't even have any legislation in any committees discussing changing the formulas. And we're the policy group. And we're also the appropriators. We should be the ones that change that policy, and then we should be the ones that decide what funding level in those policies are going to be funded and stick with it. And when we change it, we should be letting our communities know well in advance. If it's a year, 2 years out, or whatever, there's going to be a shift in policy. As far as the budget reductions go, you know, we're all struggling with the deficit issue. We have moved the budget down significantly, but this is just a smoke and mirrors. This just transfers the burden to the municipalities that have cash economies. It does not eradicate anything. To look at the cash balances collectively, if it's 500 million or whatever it is, around the state, and not bifurcate that by each school district to see what is an actual surplus that is liquid that you may not need if you have an earthquake, a flood, electrical shortage or electrical shutdown to operate your schools. If you don't take that into account and make sure they have those balances plus their other obligations that are current, the number's just garbage in the air. It's a meaningless number. They could have 500, they could have 750, they could have 300. It doesn't mean anything. And then when you take a look at the different communities in my district, I have different communities that are in different physical positions than others. Clearly, when you look around the state, there are school districts that are very well off with their traveling of their sports teams. They travel around all the time. There's, you know, money coming out their ears. Most school districts aren't like that. Most school districts run pretty tight budgets. So, you know, you've got to not look at the aggregate number and not take a look at what's underneath it, or it's just nothing. It's craziness. So when we take a look at some of these impacts, let me, just for those that are home, read off some of these things. And some of them had mentioned earlier. I'm not going to read the whole list and, you know, we'll be here till 5 o'clock. But Anchorage, the impacts, 19.9 million. Dillingham, 360,000. Fairbanks, 4.2 million. Haines is 436,000. Juneau, 3.4, almost 3.5 million. Kenai, 1.37 million. Kenai might have that on the bank as extra. How many years can they withstand that before property tax goes up? Same with every other one of these towns. Ketchikan, one of the towns I represent, 1.1 million. They got debt up to their gills in Ketchikan. So it's an impact there. Kodiak, 2.7. Matsu, 8.9 million. Matsu and Anchorage are the biggest. Matsu 8.9, Anchorage is 19.9. You got Northwest Arctic Borough, 1.9, almost 2 million. Petersburg, a small fishing community, 226,000. Sitka, I represent Sitka also, and Petersburg, right under $1 million. I can assure you neither one of those two towns have a lot of liquidity floating around, along with Ketchikan. Valdez, 795. We all know Valdez is in a little different structure with the terminal there. They may be better off than a lot of people. Wrangell, 81,000. The point I want to make, this is real money. This is not a budget reduction. And the property owners are getting their taxes raised. That's what's going to happen. Because the bonds are going to be paid. You're not going to relinquish or miss your bond payments or break your bond covenants. The other linkage we have is within helping the organized communities build schools and pay for schools. We have a linked mechanism for the unorganized areas, so they get a little bit. So we're fair to everybody around the state, as fair as we can be. We always argue about that every year, how fair it is, but but clearly we all struggle for fairness. In the REA, the rural unorganized areas, 19.694, 20 million. So that $20 million goes into a pot, and that pot goes to build schools in the unorganized areas that don't have any cash. They're going to get nothing. So then you stop and you think, okay, this is really good policy today. I like that. You know, let's just hammer this budget, pass this bill down to City Hall, and by God, they got lots of money, and let's get it out of them. And you think, well, what happens in 2 years? What happens in 3 years? 4 years? What happens in 4 years, 3 years when Matt Sue needs a school? Do we tell him no? Go build your own school? I doubt it. I think they need a school every, what, 2, 3 years, 2.5 years, something like that. Western Alaska, they're having kids, more kids than the other areas of the state. We're going to educate them. What are we going to tell them? We're not going to build their school? Then what's going to happen? Across the street, the law building is going to get real busy. Supreme Court's going to come down like they have before, and they're going to make a suggestion to the legislature, point blank, you will build schools. You have a constitutional obligation. And if you don't do it, we'll help you do it. So what do? We answer that call by building schools in rural Alaska to educate their kids in a warm and safe environment. That's our fundamental responsibility. That's what we're supposed to be doing. That's what we're here for. So I urge my colleagues to look beyond today. Look at what we're going to do 4 or 5 years from now. Look at the policy we're setting. I won't be asking for money to build schools in my district. I'll be very surprised, and for those watching, I got everything south of Juneau. I'll be very surprised if Juneau needs a school, or Kodiak needs a school, or Anchorage needs a school. I think they're talking about consolidation. I'd like to see the argument that Mat-Su does not need a school. I'd like to see the argument that kids in Western Alaska don't need schools, because that argument cannot stand. And with that, Madam President, Mr. Speaker, I am very encouraged that the legislature will not let down future Alaskans and will ensure that they have a good education and quality schools and a state, no matter what financial position or intermediate turmoil they have, they will stand tight and will take care of the obligation we have to our children. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Stedman. Senator